Another game, Rube. We're almost to another game already. That's how a short week works.
Short week, 2 games in a minimal number of days.
We've heard that a lot.
It's kind of crazy.
It's it's not easy. It's funny because it's kind of commonplace now these Thursday games, but it's definitely not an easy thing for a football player to play on Sunday, and then Thursday is the time of the week where they're starting to feel normal again.
Yeah, and I talked to a couple of players in the locker room today, Tuesday, about just how good Nick is about making sure the guys. And look, I think it goes back to even training camp. I mean, he just makes sure they're taking care of their body and not taking the physical stuff isn't taking a toll. And he's really good at it, and I think they appreciate that.
Yeah, they certainly do. I should mention, this is about the time I mentioned, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. This is a lot of fun. We're here at the the Rivers Casino Philadelphia live here right now. We're at the sports book. We're in our little aquarium right here looking out onto the casino floor. A lot of fun. I like this place.
It does kind of feel like an aquarium.
It does.
Debbie Gibson will be here December 3rd.
People are tapping on the glass.
Very excited.
It's fun to be out here. We have a lot to talk about today. We want to get into the trade deadline. The actual deadline time has come and gone. We're doing this after 4 p.m. So that was it. The Eagles made one trade, but it was a big trade, and we'll talk about how Robert Quinn played in his first game.
A trade, not today. Just
yes, they made a trade.
Be clear.
Not today, but one last week. But first, before we get into all that and some of the moves that did happen on the trade deadline, the Eagles are in this stretch right now where they play a lot of teams that just aren't very good. And I think there is definitely an art to playing these kinds of teams, and the Eagles have really figured it out.
Yeah, the numbers are crazy. Nick Sirianni, since he got here, is 13-1 when the Eagles are the favorites. The only losses up at the Giants last year, the 13-7 game where Jalen threw a few picks. They haven't lost a home game as a favorite. And there's really something to be said about not playing down your opponents, taking care of business every week. This team doesn't seem to be affected by a lot of the things that, I guess, the pratfalls that affect a lot of teams, trap games, games against teams, that are 1-6, short weeks, back-to-back road games, all the things, long road trip to the West Coast, all that stuff can really play on a team if you let it. This team is so focused, and I mean, we've heard Nick talk about it so many times. It kind of, loses its meaning to us. When he talks about the next play, the next snap, the next meeting, the next whatever. But they buy into it, and they believe it, and they live that way. And I think when you do that, you really do have an opportunity to take each game as it comes and be at your best on that Sunday, no matter who you're playing, no matter where it is, no matter what came before or who you're playing next. And that's a rare quality for a team to have.
Yeah, and it really isn't easy. And we've seen teams before that kind of play down to their competition. And this is another game. The Eagles are favored right now by 13 points over the Texans. I mean, they stink, but there is a hidden danger in that. And that another part of this that impresses me so much is when they're favored by 6.5 points or more, they haven't lost, and they have covered in all those games.
Yeah.
So it's not they're taking care of business against teams they should beat. And when you're looking at the schedule, that's really important because it does get harder at the end of the year. 4 of their last 6 games are against opponents who right now have winning records. So it does get a little tougher.
Yeah, and they don't play any teams currently with a winning record till then, which is interesting. And, yeah, I think the Pittsburgh game was a real test of that. I was really curious to see, would they come out flat?
Especially after the bye week.
Would they come out flat? Would they come out and play down to the Steelers? And the Steelers are not a good team. There's a couple good players, but they didn't do any of that. They jumped on them early. They finished them off. They did everything you would want them to do. In that situation, it's a team from it's a losing team that's not in your division, your conference even. I guess for some people it's a rivalry because they're both in the same state, but I think that's kind of made up unless you live, in State College, wherever it's halfway Breezewood, I think.
If you were a big Steagles fan, that's a one you circle on your calendar.
It was hard covering them because, you got the guys you knew from the previous year from the Eagles, and all of a sudden all these guys from the Steelers come in.
What year was that?
43.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I thought from that standpoint it was a really impressive win. I mean, you look, a lot would have had to really go wrong for them to lose, but for them to win the way they did, commanding fashion, play a complete game, and finish that team off, it was something you really wanted to see.
Yeah, and that was the most encouraging part about that Pittsburgh game was that they did finish it the way you wanted them to finish, because there were some games this year where sure they won and they closed, but some tense moments at the end of some of those games. It was nice to see them not even play all 60 minutes. They didn't need all 60 minutes, but they played and they got a big lead, and then they were able to rest some of their guys. I did want to ask you, though, like, what do you think goes into being such a good team against bad teams? And it's beyond the obvious. Like, obviously, for the most part, good teams beat bad teams. But why do you think the Eagles are 13-1 in those games they're favored in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a big part of it is Nick's approach, and he really does have them, focused on the daily challenge of getting better, and not on, who this team is or what our record is or what their record is. And I'm sure on one level they know the Steelers aren't a great team, but it doesn't define their week. It doesn't define how they prepare and how they practice. And I think everything Nick has told them has worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they really believe and they buy in. I mean, and when he says, when he tells them this is a team that is really capable of beating you, they believe it and they prepare for it. And I also think they have a really high character in that locker room. They have guys who, because it only takes a few guys in a locker room to, like, oh, it's the Steelers. We can take shortcuts. We'll roll over them. Then the young guys hear that and they start doing that stuff. They don't have anyone like that. And it's a good locker room from that standpoint.
Yeah. If they do have anyone like that,
they cut them.
Well, you don't have to cut them. Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, they'll stop it. They'll stop it pretty quick. I think back to, remember that impassioned Kelsey speech before the season about expectations?
Yeah, you just quoted that in a story.
Yeah, I did. The story on this very topic, which isn't a surprise. But I think back not just to what he said about expectations, but he talked about the way you have to grade film and the way you have to just look at what's on that tape and not worry about the outcome. And the Eagles have been very good at that, of correcting their mistakes from wins. Obviously, it's a better situation to correct the wins. You'd want to be 8-0. You want to be able to correct things from these games that you're winning, but there are some pitfalls with that, because I think there's a tendency to let things slide. Yeah, maybe you didn't get whole contain on that play, but we won the game and the play still works. So what's the difference? It takes a special team to hold each other accountable and say, no, that matters. And it might not matter in that moment, in that game. It might matter in December. It might matter in January. It might matter in February. And you have to kind of stop those things right now. And I appreciate the teams that look at it that way.
And I think a lot of that comes from Jalen. I think when the quarterback has that mentality of, I mean, he played maybe his best game as a pro Sunday against Pittsburgh. It was up there.
Yeah.
4 25-yard touchdowns, no turnovers again. He was in total command of the game. And after the game, all he's talking about is all the plays he left on the field. And I wish I made that throw to AJ. And I had Goddard, and I took a couple sacks. I ran into trouble. I shouldn't have done that. And it's genuine. I mean, that's who he is. And the quarterback on any team is a guy who's really setting the tone for how the team. I mean, there's guys on both sides of the ball who are looking at Jalen. What's he going to say? How's he going to respond? And when he's talking about always wanting to get better, I mean, he wasn't sitting up there saying, "Yeah, I threw these touchdowns. My passer rating was 140. How many interceptions in 3 games?" He's up there being critical of himself. And I think when the quarterback does that, it's genuine, then it really does set a tone for the rest of the team. We've had quarterbacks around here who aren't accountable. I'm not thinking anyone in particular, but it creates issues in the locker room. It really does.
Yeah, because I think there's always going to naturally be a quarterback versus everyone else dynamic because the quarterback gets all the praise and they have all the attention on them. And Jalen is so quick to just hold up a mirror and let it bounce right off of him. And I think that's really impressive. It is genuine, but I also think that it's calculated in a way because he knows he played well, right? Like we all know he played well. He threw 4 touchdowns, and I by the way I do agree with him. He did leave some plays out there,
Sure.
so uh, I think it's genuine, but also calculated because he knows whatever he says isn't just to us. You know, it's not like it's me, you, a bunch of reporters, and Jalen in a room, and that's as far as those comments go. It goes out to the world. It goes to his teammates. It gets back to them, and I think it kind of breeds this atmosphere where 7-0 isn't good enough.
He's very shrewd that way.
Mm-hmm.
He really knows what message to deliver, how to deliver it, and how it's going to resonate with his teammates.
Yeah. Want to get into the trade deadline?
Sure.
It's fun. These trade deadlines these days, things happen. For a long time, the NFL, and it's still not like some other trade deadlines where it's just madness, but there used to be a time in the NFL where the trade deadline would come and go and you'd have a couple moves and nothing major. Things have changed, and it's like a new era of NFL GMs who understand the value of proven players and they're not just gripping onto these draft picks for dear life anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much of the activity has to do with having an extra wild card and more teams are thinking we might be 3-4 right now, but we feel like we have a shot and let's try to get better. So it is interesting. It'll be interesting to see how you take today's moves, and there's a lot of them. How many of them pan out, and what works and what doesn't work? Because there was a lot. Teams seem to be really, really eager to wheel and deal.
They do, and I wonder how much GMs like Howie have changed philosophies around the league because we know Howie for years has kind of been on the forefront of being willing to make these deals, and I wonder if that's rubbing off around the league. Especially, there are a lot of guys from Philly and other front offices too now.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. he's got a former guy. That's interesting. It's possible. I mean, certainly it's a copycat league. Howie just sat back today and let everyone else make the deals and didn't do anything. But certainly, I think really going back to Banner and Howie back in the early days. I mean, a lot of the stuff they did with contracts and pushing money forward, unused cap was groundbreaking. And now everybody does it.
Yeah,
the Eagles were at the forefront of a lot of stuff like that, just little tricks in the CBA and really even like game day elevations, stuff like that. They've been at the forefront of a lot of stuff.
yeah, they're very good at analyzing the way things are done and then figuring out whether they're loopholes or little tricks that they can use to not really game the system, but get advantages over other teams who might be slow to figure out the ways that they can do different things. So I give them credit for that. You want to go through some of these trades because
Sure.
there were some big names on the move, some trades that didn't happen that we expected. But let's start with Nyheim Hines to the Buffalo Bills. Bills adding another good player to a team that there weren't many weaknesses, and running back is a spot. They gave up Zach Moss in that, but Nyheim Hines is a nice added weapon for them.
Yeah, he is, and the rich get richer. You think are the Bills the best team in football? Who would you say, Eagles or the Bills?
Probably the Bills.
Yeah, they lost in Miami. Was their one loss. I mean, Singletary's a nice player, but Hines is going to really help them. I mean, they're already averaging like 30 points a game, and giving up about 14. So, yeah, rich get richer. They're a fun team to watch, and he's only going to help that.
Yeah, they're very good. No, Nyheim Hines was. We heard on Monday that he was on the trade block, and there's an obvious connection here to Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni. Would you have explored that if you're Howie?
No, I mean, what did they get? What did the Bills? What did the Bills send to? Was a six? It was a player and a conditional 6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay.
I like their running backs.
I think I'd be in on it.
I mean,
It was Zach Moss and a conditional 6th-round pick.
he's pretty good receiving back.
Very good receiving back. He is what the Eagles hope Kenny Gainwell will become. And I Kenny Gainwell hasn't really been that.
You know, it's interesting, and it is a little off topic, but they really trust Kenny Gainwell with those fourth quarter carries when on those drives when it's like, all right, Miles is off the field. And I mean, the one bad play, Gainwell was that one interception. It was just an unfortunate play, but they haven't really that many targets. He doesn't have a ton of targets like last year. They haven't thrown to the backs at all. Gainwell's got five catches. No, this doesn't have targets, but
9 targets.
9 targets. Yeah, that's not ideal.
Yeah. He had 50 targets as a rookie. And look, the offense has obviously changed. They have A.J. Brown, and you got to get him his targets. And they added Zach Pascal, who's another weapon in the receiving game. But it has kind of been the one element of that offense that's been missing.
Yeah, it's true.
I would have been in on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm just saying I like their backs. And, yeah, I just like their backs.
I like Miles Sanders.
Boston hasn't looked great this year. I mean, he gets the ball usually in those situations where they're crowding the box also. And he's a good receiver, and they never throw to him. I don't know if he's 1 target this year.
Yeah.
So if Hines were here, I don't know if they'd throw to him.
Oh, I think they would if he was here.
Maybe.
You'd have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on here. We have some other trades. Calvin Ridley got traded today to the Jaguars. Calvin Ridley can't play right now. He's suspended, but I kind of like that move because they're loading up for their young quarterback. They're playing the long game here. And Doug will be happy to get him next year, hopefully, if he's back.
Yeah.
Which he should be, I think.
It's interesting for a team like them to be, to be adding at this point.
Well, it's certainly unique, though, because they're not adding a player that's going to play this year.
That's true. But, I mean, how old is he? About 28?
He's probably around there, like 27, 28.
Yeah. I mean,
he's a very good player. He's 27. He'll turn 28.
Oh, he is
in
terrific.
December.
Yeah.
He's great. I mean, the Eagles probably would have traded for him if he didn't get suspended.
Yeah, could be.
Things worked out okay.
Yeah. Another Alabama guy, right?
Mm-hmm. I like that. I really like that move for Trevor Lawrence. It kind of shows help's coming. Just get through this year.
I guess, yeah.
Well, and they're buying pretty low on him.
Yeah. What about from Atlanta's standpoint?
Well, it was pretty clear he wasn't going to be there anymore. So
I guess
you get something for him.
They've won 4 of their last 6.
You buying that?
Yeah. No.
Okay. The one trade that I understand it, but I thought they gave up way too much. Chase Claypool from the Steelers got traded to the Bears. They give up a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And I like Chase Claypool. We saw him here, obviously, on Sunday. Made some big plays. He's a good player. We've seen him kill the Eagles before. But a 2nd-round pick? And it's a team in the Bears that obviously they're not trading him for just this year. They think he can be there. You know, I think they try to sign him to an extension after this season. But I get it from the standpoint of they want Justin Fields to have something and continue to grow. Didn't think they'd be buyers at the deadline and be willing to give up a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, it was an odd one. I like the player. I think he's pretty good. It's a weird one, though. Yeah, I mean, because also, I mean, if you're the Steelers, you get a 2 for him. But you also have Kenny Pickett, who's trying to find his way.
Yeah, but they have good receivers still. They have Kenny Pickens and they have Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Kenny.
Oh, I combined them. I made them one person.
Kenny.
Yeah, George Pickens.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, Deontay Johnson's pretty good. I like him. But, I mean, Claypool's 24, But, yeah, I mean, if you can get a 2 for him.
Yeah.
He was a 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Nick Chubb to the Dolphins from Denver. Good pass rusher. They're going to pair him with Jalen Phillips, who, man, I think there's something special with Jalen Phillips. You have those two guys coming off the edge, two young players. That's going to be fun for a long time.
Yeah, that defense is already pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So just add another piece.
And then the last thing about the trade deadline I wanted to mention, a non-trade, Brandon Cooks did not get traded for the first time ever. He's sticking around Houston, so the Eagles will still have to deal with him on Thursday night.
Yeah, good player. Another older guy, but he's had a really good, consistent year. Career. I mean, he never has bad season.
Yeah, he's very quietly putting together. He's 29 now. It's crazy. He's gone over 1,000 yards
5 times, maybe six
times. 6 times in 9 years.
How many teams have you been with? 5?
New Orleans, New England, Rams, now Houston. This is his 3rd season in Houston.
Okay.
Good player.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he's still there.
I am too. I thought he'd get moved, and he probably should have, honestly.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's a little older than teams want to acquire.
I mean, if you're a contender and you need a receiver.
Yeah. No, I would certainly have been interested if I was looking for a guy.
Wonder if that Claypool deal kind of threw off the compensation a little bit.
Could be.
Sometimes you get one deal like that that's like, what are you doing? And then it's like the Christian Kirk contract kind of just like warped the market.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Claypool deal kind of warped it.
Could be.
It's interesting. The Eagles, like we mentioned, they did trade for Robert Quinn last week. He played 20 snaps in his Eagles debut. A little flash. He had one quarterback hit. He got after him on another time. I thought he played pretty well.
Yeah.
Given the situation.
It's a lot to ask. Gannon was talking today about how hard it was for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He had 11 days. Yeah. This kid had 3 days. Edge rusher is going to be a lither easier to acclimate than safety. But it's. I mean, look, he wasn't going to come in and get 3 sacks in his first game, and he played a little more than I expected. He played 20 snaps. I thought it might be 8 to 12. Yeah, he's going to help this team.
He is. I think there's still something there. And I had a chance to chat with him a little bit today. It was funny. I was like, have you gotten a chance to settle in? I know that he's like, yeah, it's a little tough with this short week now. Like I barely got settled in from the first game, and now I have to play again. Another unique thing is he's going to have to play 18 games this year with no bye week.
Yeah. Ertz could have done that, right? But then there was a rule because I think the Eagles – I think did the Eagles play on a Thursday and they got traded on a Friday and Arizona played Sunday or something like that. Okay. He wasn't allowed to. You can't play 2 games in 1 week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he will play 18 games. But I guess he'll be the first player in history to play 18 games. Although who knows? Who knows who's going to play by week 18?
We'll have to see what happens. But it was funny. I asked him, I was like, did you realize that? And he's like, yeah, I realized that pretty quick that I'd have to deal with this. And I was like, he said, just got to take care of your body the way you normally do, but just be really cognizant of it because it's a lot. And especially on this team, it's not like he got traded from one bad team to another. I mean, this is an Eagles team gearing up for a playoff run. He might get a bye week, but it might be in January.
Yeah, I do think the way he's going to be used, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a 40-snap guy as long as the other edge rushers are healthy. I mean, that number might go up from 20, but I don't think it's going to go up a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's going to be out there grinding every snap. Just real quick, you're a little surprised the Eagles didn't make any moves?
On the deadline day, not surprised. I thought there was a good chance they would, and I thought running back was a position, whether it was Kareem Hunt, whether it was Nyheim Hines, or even a guy who I didn't hear get mentioned, but David Montgomery would have made some sense to me too. He would have kind of given them a physicality and also a guy who can catch the ball. But they stand pat, which I think is fine. I'm assuming Howie was working the phones on Tuesday trying to figure it out if there was anything he could do, and he didn't. But that's okay too. I mean, Robert Quinn was kind of a bigger splash than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, no doubt. I think in the next few hours we'll hear what they were involved in.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like they always are.
Yeah, how he's going to be involved in everything.
Yeah.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat fast. Experience the thrill for yourself at your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLE. Rube, trade deadline's gone. Now we can kind of switch our focus to the Houston Texans and a really bad football team.
Yeah, they are really bad. One win this year. It was over Doug Peterson's Jaguars, a 13-6 barn burner at Jacksonville. They haven't won at home. They tied the Colts in the opener.
1-5-1.
1-5-1. They don't score a lot of points. They give up a lot of points. Probably worse on offense than defense, but they're pretty bad on both sides of the ball. There's not a lot to. They run the ball well.
They do
until they're down by 20 points.
It's a tough way to have an offense. I have some matchups here in front of me we can go through real quick, and I think that's one of the bigger ones you hit on was the Houston Texans running game. Dameon Pierce, the 4th-round pick from Florida. He was a guy I really liked in the draft. I thought the Eagles should have taken a good look at him. He runs hard. Gosh, does he run hard. I mean, he already has 16 broken tackles this year. And against this team,
it doesn't take much to break a tackle.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on, especially now with Jordan Davis out. You know, the Eagles have been good. This is oversimplifying, right? But the Eagles have been good in their bare front, stopping the run with Jordan Davis on the nose. Without that, I mean, they've been gashed in their 4-man front. And I think they're going to be forced to play more 4-man fronts. I don't know how you get around that. Javon Hargrave will play on the nose a little bit. I think they have Marlon Tuipulotu to play in that position too, but they're going to miss the big guy.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, it's fortunate that he'll be back at some point, and I think by the time they're in that run where they play the Titans, the Giants twice, and the Cowboys, you'll hope he'd be back in 100% by then. But they'll miss him, and he was playing really, really well.
He was getting better every week.
He really was.
That was so encouraging. And then they were playing him. They finally, I feel like can I take some credit? No, I won't take credit. I feel like I was waiting forever for Jordan Davis to get in that 4-man front, and they finally did it in the game he gets hurt. Yeah. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but the Eagles are giving up 5.1 per carry. Mm-hmm. They're among the worst in the league in run defense, and it's all tackling. That's all it is. It's bad tackling. And Pierce is a guy who's, I mean, he's a bowling. He's like 5'10", 220, powerful.
Yeah. He's like stout, but he runs so hard.
He doesn't look like Jeff Stoutland.
I knew you were going to do that.
Averaging 4.5 yards a carry. He's a good receiver. He's got 20 catches in 7 games. 4th-round pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a late pick. Really, I mean, he's their biggest weapon, and him and Cooks, I guess. I don't think he can beat this team running the ball. I certainly don't think Houston can beat this team running the ball, but they could make it an ugly game.
They could give us plenty to talk about next week.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go to another one with the Texans side of the ball. Kenyon Green, the rookie tackle or rookie guard, from Texas A&M, not playing great. He has some lumps as a rookie, and he's going to see a lot of Javon Hargrave in this game, coming off his best performance of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have a chance to watch any of that game? Because Hargrave, I mean, he had the 2 sacks and the strip sack, but he played really well.
He played well. I rewatched, but I no tape when I rewatched, so I had to watch the game copy.
Yeah, it was encouraging to see because he had been pretty quiet this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had been, and they're going to need him now. He's going to have to play multiple roles down the stretch. I mentioned him as the nose. I think that's going to be, as good as he is getting up the field as a 3-tech, they're going to need him to play over the center at times.
Yeah.
Which is a different thing. It's, it's something that he was a little more in a passive defense in Pittsburgh, and it took a long time for him to flip his mentality when he got into Jim Schwartz's defense. Now it's a little bit changed under Jonathan Gannon, but he's a big key to this team down the stretch.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It'll be fun to see how all the different interior linemen are used without Jordan in there, and yes, maybe Marvin Wilson gets a
An
call up.
elevation.
Yeah,
yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah.
Davis Mills.
Yeah,
he's not as bad as people think he is.
He's not great.
He's not great, but he can make some throws. He can if you take him lightly, he'll make some plays.
He throws a lot of picks. He'll put it up for grabs. But yeah, I mean he's got some talent. He runs around, makes some plays. He's also he's won 3 out of 18 career starts.
You and your QB wins.
It's kind of important to, when you don't win games, it's not all his fault, but
I mean, that team stinks.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
I mean, if you ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks, Davis Mills would be in the bottom 10.
Yeah.
And they're in a stretch where they're playing all those guys in a row.
Let's move to the Eagles offense. This could be a big Miles Sanders game.
Boy, they can't stop the run.
They stink. And you think all right, they're not a good team. Maybe what's happening is, they're getting down and teams are just bleeding. No, they can't stop the run. It's a big problem. Their average is 5.6 yards per attempt against them.
Yeah, that's even worse than the Eagles.
Much worse. Half a yard per attempt worse.
Do you have trouble getting that out?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Chargers are actually worse. Chargers are
slightly.
The bottom 5 are the Chargers, the Texans, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Lions. It's and the Eagles are really good against the run last year. It's kind of a weird deal, but I think it's going to be a big Miles Sanders day.
Yeah,
I see Trey Sermon out there get 8 carries.
He could handle it.
If you give him 8 carries Sunday or Thursday, I'll bet he gets you 42 yards.
Going to be tough from the bench because he's going to be inactive. But,
probably.
Yeah, this could be a big Miles Sanders game, and it's interesting because not even last week, this week they played the Steelers, who were just god awful as a pass defense. Now they're playing a similarly bad team against the run, and that's the beauty of this Eagles offense is they can just do what they need to do in any given game.
Yeah, and Houston's pass defense is pretty good.
Yeah, Derek Stingley's legit.
Yeah.
They have Steven Nelson, our old friend Steven Nelson, as the other starting corner. He's been solid.
Yeah, he's played well.
Yeah.
They got
big revenge game for get that storyline going.
They've picked off 7 passes and only allowed 5 touchdowns, which is, you see a ratio like that. That's interesting. A lot of that is
Stingley's very good.
He is good. A lot of that is just how bad they are against the run, though. I mean, 1,302 yards in 7 games is they're allowing 186 rushing yards a game.
Yeah, I looked it up. They are the 4th team in the last 20 years to give up that many rushing yards through 7 games.
Yeah, and if Shane sticks with the run, which he generally does when it's a advantageous matchup, they could go for 250.
Yeah, I think they could. It's such a beautiful thing, though, how balanced this offense is. And it really starts with the offensive line because they're just as good running the ball as they are in pass pro. It's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. It's funny because, this is a week where, Jalen Hurts has his big game. A.J. Brown goes off. Miles Sanders might have a big game this week. And those are the guys who get the national spotlight. The star of this show is still that line.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The star of the show is that offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, they're I would tell any Eagles fan, you watch the game on Sunday or Thursday in this case, go rewatch it and just watch the O-line. Even if it's just the TV tape, just watch the O-line, just focus on them. And they're just really fun to watch.
And look, everyone gets beat. There are a few plays where even Lane got pushed into Hurts' lap on that one play. A play Hurts probably should have felt it, and it got, his hand got hit. That happens. But for the most part, they are just so solid up front. Their one big challenge this week is Jerry Hughes, who did not get dealt either. I thought there was a chance he would get traded. 34 years old, but already has 5 sacks in 7 games. He's been playing very well. He flips sides left and right. So that's something for both Lane and Jordan Mailata to deal with this week.
Jalen ran into a couple sacks Sunday.
He did. His awareness wasn't great.
Yeah.
He'll probably work on that. That's probably on his list of things
he's
to
not
do.
A quarterback.
Yeah. You'll take that, right? You'll take that game.
Yeah.
But this is a game they should win.
They will win.
You're right.
They're going to win.
They will.
They'll be 8-0.
Yeah. The last thing we wanted to get to today, we have just a couple of guys who we had a chance to speak with, because when you're winning like this and you're a 7-0 team, it's not all the stars. You have so many role players who matter. They matter a lot. And we wanted to highlight two guys. And I'll give you your chance to talk about Jack Stoll a little bit.
Yeah, Jack Stoll's an interesting guy because he's playing 42%. Like, he plays more snaps than Brandon Graham. But nobody ever talks about Jack Stoll, but he's really, really good at what he does. And he's a blocker. And he's an undrafted guy, Nebraska, who's he was a good blocker last year, but this year he's kind of taken it to another level. He's got 2 catches. One of them was I think he had a 22-yarder against Dallas. And in the press box, they announced it as Dallas Goedert because why wouldn't you? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to talk about the press box announcer because he also had Zach Ertz catching a ball when he was with Arizona last year.
Hard to break habits sometimes.
And those serifs, the 8s do look like 9s, but he's not on the team. But anyway, but Jack's really an impressive guy. And he talked about how he's embraced his role, but he's really working hard on the receiving end of it. He says, I'm getting a lot better. Just kind of nobody sees it, but when my number gets called, I'll be ready. And he talked about how he accepts his role. And, Nick's message to these guys is whatever your role is, be a superstar in that role, but also always try to expand your role. And he said, that's a big thing for me. He said, I like my role and I embrace it, but I don't accept it in terms of this is who I'm always going to be as a player. And he said, I hope there's a day where the coaching staff trusts me as much in the passing game as a running game. And I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I love that attitude. And
it's going to be tough to vulture some targets away from Dallas Goedert.
It will. But if he's open, he feels like he's going to catch it. And so far he has a couple times. It's a unique role. And there's only one other tight end in the league in the last 10 years who's played as many snaps on offense and had as few targets. So,
and he's not like some big monster out there. He's like a normal sized tight end.
Yeah, he is.
Who's just a really good blocker. But he has the ability. He has some athleticism.
He does.
I think eventually we're going to see them find a big pass play for him. Because you're putting this on tape so much.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that pump to Goddard, the deep ball to Zach Pascal, that wheel. That was a play that they set up for after weeks of putting on tape that, we like to throw these screens to our tight end, and then they hit a shot play to Pascal. They could hit a play to Jack Stoll that's really been set up by the first 7 weeks of him staying in to block. All it takes is, teams get used to that. They're watching the trends.
I think that's what happened in the Dallas game.
Yeah, you leak them out.
Yeah. I really like his attitude. He said, everybody wants the ball in their hands, but he says, we're 7-0. What am I going to do? Complain?
Yeah.
He says, I love being on a winning team. And he says, everybody in this locker room is just committed to doing whatever it takes to help the team win.
Mm-hmm. The guy I want to talk about was Zach McPherson, who, look, he's played fine when called upon as a replacement on defense when Slay or Bradbury need to leave a game, but his role right now is on special teams, and he's really making a name for himself on special teams. He was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week early in the season when he grabbed that onside kick, but his play on Sunday against the Steelers is about as good a special teams play as you'll ever see.
Yeah, it was so athletic and just the awareness of, it's just such a hard play because you have to get, keep your feet in the field of play, not in the end zone. You're diving into the end zone. You have to keep your feet from dragging, across the goal line. And then you have to bat the ball so it's not going to hit first in the end zone. I mean, there's a lot of things you're juggling there. It's a really tough play. And, man, he pulled it off beautifully.
Yeah, and it's something you have to remember. It's like all these guys who are on an NFL team were starters. They were all starters, and most of them were stars at the college level. So it takes some humility to get to the NFL and some self-awareness too, that you're not a star anymore, dude. You're a fourth-round pick out of Texas Tech. You're going to play special teams, and you're going to play a lot of special teams, and you better be good at it if you want to stick around. I talked to him about it, and he said, his brothers had some time in the NFL, and he was around high-level athletes, and he talked about even when he was at Penn State, some of his former teammates who were then in the league and coming back and talking to them saying, teams is where you're going to stick around in the NFL. If you're not, look, if you're a first round pick, you get that grace period and you're probably not going to play a ton of special teams. But if you're drafted after that, you better be able to do it. And I've been really impressed by how good he's become there.
Yeah, and I mean the onside kick was, I mean, he just basically caught the ball and he knew he was going to get clobbered. It's tough. Yeah, you know you're going to get clobbered, but yeah, that play, and look, special teams has been not good most of the year, all the year, but he's been a bright spot, no doubt about it.
Yeah, there aren't many bright spots, but he's one of them.
He's our special teams MVP right now.
I agree with that.
Him or Cameron Dicker.
Jake's been good.
He never kicks anymore.
Yeah, but when he does, he makes it.
Yeah. Well, how many field goals has he attempted? Like 6?
Yeah, not many. Yeah, he's a kicker, doesn't get the kick. And then the one time they were in a game-winning kick situation, he can't play.
He's hurt. He's 6 out of 7. The one was blocked. But yeah, he's got to be. I mean, I believe that's 1 attempt per game.
Yeah, not a ton.
Yeah.
All right, you got anything else before we wrap this up?
No. You know what? I want to thank everybody who we did a Reddit AMA yesterday.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. We got really good questions, and thanks if you participated in that. We'll do another one at some point.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was surprised at how many questions came in, and we were trying to get to all of them. I think we got the most of them. There were a few repeats we didn't address. So if we didn't answer your question, we apologize. Next time we will try to do our best. I'm excited to go to Houston on Wednesday. I haven't been to Houston since I lived there, so I'm really excited to see how much the city's changed.
I haven't been there since Villanova won the NCAA title.
Really?
Yeah.
What year was that?
16.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited. I have my restaurant list already made where I want to go.
In Houston, it's a very short list.
You're out of your mind. It is such a good food city.
Oh, God. Let's see. Chipotle or Baja Fresh?
You're crazy. Houston is an elite food city.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Davis Mills is a all-pro.
You're so wrong on this, and I'm so mad at you. All right, we're going to wrap this up. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We've been live here at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. It's been a lot of fun. For Rube, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you after the game.